In the name of Allah, the One, the Conqueror, and may He send His prayers and blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the Imams and the Mahdis. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Beware of the supplication of the oppressed, for it is carried above the clouds." Allah Almighty says, "By my might and majesty, I will help you in due time." Swedish state radio published an article titled, "The Police Raided a Religious Sect," on their website on April 29th at 9:36 a.m. It stated, after the police, along with several other authorities, conducted an operation against a religious sect outside of Hällefors, 69 individuals received negative decisions from the Swedish Migration Agency. It was in the autumn of 2018 when followers of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light relocated to Hällefors and Bergslagsgården. The police had been monitoring business, but it was only during a joint operation with multiple authorities that they managed to shut it down. They released with the article a couple-minute interview that they had with the head of the police intelligence service in Bergslagen, Mr. Per Lundback. Here is the audio that they released.
Totalt 69 personer blev utvisade från Sverige i samband med att polisen tillsammans med andra myndigheter under förra året genomförde en insats mot en religiös sekt som hade sin verksamhet i Sävsjön utanför Hällefors. Det berättar Per Lundbäck som är chef för polisens underrättelseverksamhet i Bergslagen.
Det fanns många funderingar runt vad den här religiösa sekten egentligen höll på med. Vid något tillfälle när vi småningom faktiskt skulle gå in så hade de bullat upp med väldigt många av deras medarbetare. Vi kände att vi kommer mötas med våld. Vi kommer få genomföra den här förrättningen med rätt mycket våld. Är det värt det? Alltså en proportionalitetsbedömning helt enkelt.
Det var under hösten 2018 som följare till The Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light flyttade till Hällefors och Bergslagsgården. Men polisens känsla var att något inte stod rätt till och de fick flera underrättelser om misstänkta brott, bland annat ett mord.
Vi tittade på allt ifrån penningtvätt, människohandel, människoexploatering och vid något tillfälle så fick vi också en rättshjälpsbegäran ifrån tysk polis som ville ha hjälp med att förhöra några av dem som bodde där och det ärendet gällde ett mord från Indien.
Tillsammans med övriga myndigheter inleddes en gemensam insats med mål att stänga ner verksamheten som polisen benämner som en sekt. Förutom polisen deltog bland annat Skatteverket, Kronofogden och Migrationsverket. Och just Migrationsverket kunde tack vare att flera av sektmedlemmarna var brittiska medborgare och att Storbritannien lämnat EU agera och totalt fatta 69 avslags- och utvisningsbeslut.
Så de blev ju utvisade ur Sverige och fick inte vara kvar där längre. Därmed så upphörde ju verksamheten, vilket också var målsättning.
Och det sa polisen Per Lundbäck. Andreas Eriksson, P4 Örebro.
On the 12th of May 2023, the same Swedish state radio published a second article titled, "The setup of the sect involved starting businesses to enable its members to come to Sweden." Written in the article was the following: "The religious sect in Sävsjön, located outside of Hällefors, utilized frivolous companies and sham employments to allow its members to stay in Sweden. The sect is said to have operated at least 3 businesses that, through sham employments, enabled 70 members and their families to reside in the country. Companies are often a disguise for something else, such as money laundering, or to hire people on paper, but in reality, the people do nothing," says Per Lundback, head of Police Intelligence Operations.
Den religiösa sekten i Sävsjön utanför Hällefors använde sig av oseriösa företag och skenanställningar för att medlemmarna skulle kunna vistas i Sverige. Det kan P4 Örebro nu avslöja. Per Lundbäck är chef för polisens underrättelseverksamhet i Bergslagen.
Företag är ofta en fasad för någonting annat. Det kan ju vara penningtvätt, men det kan också vara att man anställer människor som kanske inte jobbar utan de finns där på pappret, men i själva verket så gör man ingenting.
Just den här typen av skenanställning är något som den religiösa sekten i Hällefors ska ha använt sig av. Genom att starta minst 3 olika företag, bland annat en restaurang i centrala Örebro, kunde närmare 70 personer få möjlighet att vistas i Sverige. Men den bedömning som polisen och Migrationsverket gjorde var att företagen var oseriösa och enbart hade startats för att sektmedlemmarna och deras familjer skulle få vistas i Sverige. Lönen som medlemmarna skulle få var precis över den gräns som finns vid arbetskraftinvandring, men nästan inga pengar betalades ut. Medlemmarna själva hävdar att anställningen har varit äkta och att Migrationsverkets uppfattning är ogrundad. Och efter myndigheternas gemensamma insats så har sekten försvunnit från Sävsjön. Det säger polisen Per Lundbäck.
Det var ju ingen i myndighetssamverkan som ville ha en religiös och dessutom våldsam sekt. De vill vi inte ha överhuvudtaget, men speciellt inte i vårt närområde.
Andreas Eriksson, P4 Örebro.
So, first and foremost, the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light is a 501c3 nonprofit, US-based organization with church status. In other words, that means for Per Lundbäck and the Swedish authorities that the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light is a religion which is officially recognized by the United States of America and is also exempt by the IRS from paying taxes due to that. Second, the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light has members of its faith in all parts of the world. We have legally registered bases not only in the United States, but also in the United Kingdom and the European Union. Third, we have been recognized by international human rights organizations as a religious minority which has faced and is currently facing extreme forms of religious persecution and discrimination in various parts of the world. Human rights organization Amnesty International had written several articles and posts about our members in Algeria who were imprisoned by the Algerian government simply for being members of our faith. They were charged with participation in an unauthorized group. They were charged also with offending the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and denigrating the creed and precepts of Islam. Amnesty International went on one of the Arab world's most famous television channels, Al Hurra, to defend us and speak out about our case. This eventually resulted in our members being released from prison in Algeria. The European Union's top human rights organization, Human Rights Without Frontiers, published an article about 13 members of the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light who were imprisoned and tortured in Iran for simply being believers in our religion. The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom has also published on their website bios of our members of the faith who have been persecuted because of their faith. We have had members of our faith arrested in Iraq, Egypt, Turkey, Malaysia, and many other countries around the world. Many other human rights organizations have recognized the oppression and dangers that we face as a religious minority and have provided support. Organizations such as Freedom House, which is based out of Washington, D.C., the Human Rights Activist News Agency, and the Jubilee Campaign, both of which are also based out of the United States of America. Many of our members are fleeing for their lives due to religious persecution and discrimination in their countries. We have lines open with organizations such as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the Association on Refugees and Migrants based out of Bulgaria, and the Bulgarian Helsinki Committee, as well as the Foundation for Access to Rights and the Greek Council for Refugees. That is who we are. A religious minority which faces persecution and discrimination in the world, particularly in Muslim-majority countries, because they do consider us to be apostates of Islam. The reason they consider us to be apostates of Islam is because we do not believe the headscarf for women is mandatory. We believe that there's a new covenant with God after Islam, and that is the 7th covenant with Imam Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam. Because we believe the Star of David to be a holy symbol. Because we believe that 99% of religions, including Islam, to be wrong in 99% of what it teaches. Because we believe in the permissibility of the drinking of alcohol. Because our doors are open to every human being, regardless of their race or sexual orientation. Because we believe that the Quran that came down upon Muhammad is not the same as the one that is currently in the hands of the Muslims, and that the complete Quran is with the Mahdi alayhi salam. We believe the Muslims lost the true month of Ramadan after the killing of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and we believe that the true month of Ramadan is in the month of December. And we believe the true Kaaba to be in Petra and not the one that is in Mecca. So because we have different beliefs and views, and because we are tolerant to other persecuted people, we have been the target of arrests, persecutions, racist and prejudice attacks, and acts of violence from around the world. Now, in 2018, when we first established ourselves in Sweden, we obtained a property in Bergslagsgården, and it was officially registered in the name of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light with the Landsmäteriet, which is the government body in Sweden responsible for land registrations. We also had our faith legally registered in Sweden and obtained an organization number from the Skatteverket, which is the Swedish tax agency. We also beforehand filled out questionnaires and forms which informed the Swedish government beforehand of our intentions. In the form, it asked us what we intended to do in the country as an organization, and we replied that we intended to use the facility which we purchased in accordance with the tax code section number 94910, which is titled Activities of a Religious Community. That includes all normal services provided to visitors within churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, and other places. It also includes monastic activity, retreat activities, religious funeral services, and confirmation teachings. We also said that we intended to use the facility in accordance with the Swedish SNI, or tax code number 85599. And that included religious education. And that is exactly what we used the property for. We mainly provided religious education, but we also provided English, Arabic, and Swedish language courses at different times throughout the year. We used the property as a house of worship just as any church, temple, synagogue, or mosque does. We used it for summer retreats and youth activities, and for confirmation teachings. We also provided computer training for our satellite station staff. They were trained on editing and producing various programs for our TV channel. We never used the property for anything other than that. So, our intentions as well as our identity were clear from the beginning. Information about the directors of the religion and our founding documents were also sent to the Swedish government. They approved our usage, registered the land in our name, and gave us a tax number. We had hired 11 employees for the religion, all of whom were working for the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. In addition to that, we had dozens of volunteers, visitors, and members of the religion who came to and from the base. The radio show had hosted a certain police officer who they gave the title of the head of the police intelligence for Bergslagen, and they say that according to him, 69 members of the sect were expelled from Sweden in 2022 after police carried out an operation against the religious sect. The reality is that we had already planned since 2020 to move operations to the United Kingdom. In 2021, we purchased a property in the United Kingdom and began to move operations there. By the time most of our British national members received notices from the Swedish Migration Authority that they had to leave Sweden, they had already left or had tickets and were preparing to leave. We left Sweden for the United Kingdom for many reasons. One of them being Brexit, and many of the British nationals were unable to continue living in the European Union. Another reason is because our operations were all mainly in English, and we wanted to reside in an English-speaking country. A third reason was the ongoing harassment and bullying by the Swedish police and the residents in the area. In September of 2020, we were shocked and appalled to find our base in Sweden being raided by more than 20 uniformed police officers in over 7 police vehicles, accompanied by an armed team of 5 SWAT police officers in full combat gear. Families with children were present on the property that day, and they were terrified and traumatized by the sight. The officers did not allow any member of the congregation to leave the premise. Therefore, parents were unable to even pick up their children from school on time. Children under the age of 8 were left unattended at the school for hours and had no way to get home. They never informed us of the reason why they conducted the raid, and they suddenly left the property without arresting anyone, without interviewing anyone, or without even fining anyone. These are actions that we expect to take place in Algeria, in Egypt, Iraq, or Iran, but certainly not in a country such as Sweden that is a member of the European Union and which claims to stand for tolerance, freedom, and inclusion. According to Sweden's own laws, police have to state the reason why they are conducting a raid and are not allowed to just raid people's properties without reason. Officer Lundback claims that the police, after coming and arriving to the scene with an armed SWAT team, withdrew because they assessed that the situation might turn violent. That is a lie. As you will see, the entire event was documented on camera by members of the faith, as well as by a journalist who worked for Rupley at the time. The reason why they withdrew from the property in shame was because they found no criminal activities. There were no drugs that were found during the raid. There were no weapons that were found during the raid. There were no illegal immigrants that were found during the raid. There was nothing to charge us with. That is why they shamefully left the property with their tails between their legs, not because they assessed that we were going to be violent. We had over 50 children on base at the time. If we were violent, why did they leave the children in a violent atmosphere? If we were criminals, why did they leave us to continue our criminal activities? If we were violent, why did they leave us for the next year and a half in the local community? Then the officer goes on about how the police had bad feelings that things were not right, and they had reports coming into them about suspected crimes, including human trafficking and murder. All of these so-called intelligence reports were basically just false accusations made against us by disgruntled former members of the faith who were trying to harm us, as well as accusations made by Islamic extremists who wanted us gone and were trying to tarnish our image. Based off of that, in January of 2022, they raided 2 houses of members of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light in Sweden. They searched the houses and they found no drugs, no weapons, no illegal immigrants, no criminal activities, and once again provided no reason for conducting the raids. The only thing they found was a woman and her 2 mentally disabled children, who were all British nationals, and in the other house they found an American couple. The entire situation brought a lot of emotional trauma to the individuals and especially to the mentally disabled children. A couple months later, on April 11th, 2022, 2 of our members, Kalsoom Shah and her daughter Dua, were invited to the Orbro police station under false pretense. Mrs. Shaw was told that she is invited to be questioned as a witness in a case that took place in August of 2021 that had nothing to do with the religion or its members. The letter she received asked her to bring her daughter Dua along as an additional witness. Both of them made use of their right to bring legal counsel to the interrogation. Yet once they arrived to the scene, the officers insisted to separate the mother and daughter, and they did not allow their lawyer to be present during the entire interrogation. In fact, they intentionally separated 17-year-old Dua from her mother to ask her discriminating questions. They asked her if she was married off illegally, held against her will by her parents, or held hostage by the organization, or was limited in her freedoms. She was even offered a secret way to leave her family. Dua Zahra asserted that she is not held against her will, which exposed the entire operation to be unnecessary and once again based on prejudice. At the same time, Kalsoom Shaw's lawyer was ordered to leave, and officers tried to interrogate Mrs. Shaw for almost 1 hour without legal counsel present, even though she repeatedly insisted on her right to only speak in the presence of a lawyer. This was witnessed by our Swedish lawyer, who informed us that this practice of the police was completely illegal. That is their investigation into human trafficking and human exploitation. Once again, no charges were brought forth as no crime had been committed. Then they decided to hide in the bushes around the property and pull over members of the faith, entering and exiting the property, and forcefully drug test them. On the 14th of June, 2022, Swiss national Guillaume Ballet, UK national Ali Haider, and Egyptian national Leila Lutfi were stopped at a checkpoint between Haliforsh and our headquarters. They were detained by 2 unmarked police vehicles, an additional 2 marked police vehicles, and a motorcycle. The driver of the car, Guillaume, was ordered to get out of the car. When his phone rang, he tried to get it out of his pocket, but several of the officers ran towards him. They slammed him violently against the police van. They handcuffed him, and they transported him to the police station in Haliforsh. Then later to the Orbro police station. They also confiscated his phone during the entire procedure. They did not allow him to roll up the windows of his car or lock his car. His vehicle was left unattended for more than 6 hours, and it could have been stolen or damaged. They forced him to do a blood test and a urine test. Then they put him in a cell with a toilet that did not flush. After several hours, he told the officers that he was hungry, but was not given any food. During the entire time, the officers were mocking him. He repeatedly told them that he does not want to answer any questions without a lawyer present. Yet they applied psychological pressure on him to talk, and they did not assign for him a lawyer until several hours later. The Swedish lawyer assigned to him by the police did no help. They also detained the second passenger, Ali Haider. The police officer forcefully opened the door of the car and told Ali Haider to exit. While he had done nothing wrong, they arrested him, they searched him from head to toe, even in his private area, and they shouted at him. They did not allow him to take his phone even though he repeatedly asked for it. They forcefully transported him to Halifax, where they tried to interrogate him for several hours without his lawyers present, even though he requested one. Then they transported him to Orbro, where they humiliated him even further by making him strip completely, naked and bend forward. After another 30 minutes in a cell, he was informed that the charges against him had been dropped. He had been arrested and humiliated while being completely innocent. He was released and left on a street in Orbro an hour and a half from where he was taken. As the police had not allowed him to take his belongings, Ali Haider had no phone on him to contact anybody to pick him up, and he had no money to buy a bus ticket home. The drug tests for both Guillaume and Ali Haider came back negative. They had not found any drugs in their system. The third passenger, another member by the name of Leila Abdurrahman, tried to record what was happening. They attempted to snatch the phone from her, and a female officer positioned herself to block the view. They even told her that filming the Swedish police was not allowed and it's a crime. After they took the two fellow passengers, they left her alone in a field 11 kilometers from her home. No charges were pressed against any of our members. The next day, on the 15th of June, another member of our religion by the name of Fawad Haider was followed and stopped by an undercover police car in the city of Halifax. He was told that he was suspected of being under the influence of narcotics. They asked him questions, but he made use of his legal right to remain silent. Then one of the officers opened his door angrily and shouted at him, even though he had done nothing wrong. Fawad Haider was then arrested on the basis of driving the vehicle with a British driver's license. That was the charge, they told him. And he was taken to the local Halifax police station. The basis of his arrest was completely illegal, as Swedish law permits the unlimited use of British driver's licenses, and therefore the charges were dropped. Fawad Haider was taken to the local clinic, though, and forced to take a drug test. The drug test was negative. He was innocent. No charges were pressed against any of our members. Members of the faith were continually stopped and harassed by Swedish police officers, and even the window to one of their vehicles was broken.
We have the right to hold you 6 hours.
Do we get full?
Then we're going to the police station. So you step out of the vehicle now.
No, we're going to get to a lawyer first. We're going to speak to my
We're
lawyer.
gonna
speak to our
You
lawyer
have two
first.
choices. Otherwise, you step out of the car. Otherwise, we will force you out. It's up to you. Okay?
I don't understand why.
Tell him on what basis.
On what
I
basis?
explained it to you.
Go on,
I have
explain it
explained
again.
it to you once.
Explain it again.
To step out of the vehicle now.
No, explain it again, please.
You have to step out of the vehicle.
Sir,
I will
explain it
smash
again,
this window
please.
otherwise.
Well, you'll have to pay for it.
Okay?
then.
Smash the
You
window?
understand?
Well, why are you going to shoot us? Oh, so
Step
I'm going to
up the
smash the
vehicle.
window.
You have to step up off the vehicle.
On what ground?
On what ground? On what ground?
We don't know who you are in this car.
Well, you've got my ID. I'm
Yes,
the
you have
driver.
your ID. Yes. You have to take down the phone when I speak.
Why?
This is for our safety.
This is for our safety
Okay.
and
This
your
is for our
safety.
safety. We want to take this to court.
You've got your camera on as well. On there.
Open this door, or I will open it.
This is pertinent. See. You smashed the
Step
window.
out of the vehicle now.
Smash the window.
Everyone, step out the vehicle.
Smash the window, you know.
The Swedish police talk about feeling that we would be violent. The only violence that we saw was the violence from them towards us. The Swedish police talk about us being criminals, yet not a single member of our faith was ever convicted of a crime, from 2018 and until now. In fact, no member of our faith has ever been convicted of a crime since the establishment of the faith. So then on what basis was this radio show aired? And on what basis was this article published? On what basis did the so-called Swedish law enforcement agencies collaborate with other facets of the Swedish government in order to expel us from the country? On what basis did they, and without any convictions, decide that they don't want us in their country anymore? On what basis can Officer Lundback say, and I quote, "Indeed, no authorities participating in the joint operation wanted a religious sect in the area, particularly one that was violent. We don't want them at all, especially not in our local community." That means the officer is saying that without a conviction by a Swedish court and without a trial, the Swedish police judged us to be guilty, and to be guilty of being a violent sect. And they executed their own judgment of banishing us from the country. That means that Officer Lundback is admitting that the Swedish law enforcement agency and the tax agency and the migration agency and the debt collection agency all participated in an illegal act of discrimination and worked together to destroy the businesses and the lives of the members of our faith in Sweden for no other reason except that they were members of our religion. That is a despicable, horribly shameful, and unbelievably racist admission to make. And based on those admissions, the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, the members of the faith, and the businesses that were harmed have full intention to file a class action lawsuit against the Swedish police and all of the government agencies involved. Not one time did the Swedish police ever, not one time, did they ever attempt to reach out and make contact with the Ahmadi religion of peace and light's leadership, or ask any questions, or establish any relationships. We also intend to file suit against the Swedish radio for slander and defamation. The religious sect in Sävsjön, they said, located outside of Hällefors, utilized frivolous companies and sham employments to allow its members to stay in Sweden. That is an invalid statement. That is a lie. The religious sect did not own the businesses in question. The businesses were real businesses and belonged to members of the faith and were not a sham. One of the privately owned businesses in question was a sushi restaurant in Örebro. Swedish newspapers wrote articles about the restaurant and photographed the sushi master. Before it was a sushi restaurant, it was a very popular Viking grill and steakhouse, also owned by members of the faith. The restaurants operated great until the COVID pandemic, which affected all businesses. Another one of the businesses in question is a VR company called Virtuality, and then changed to be named Arcadia. And there are many videos of Swedish YouTubers online who filmed themselves at the place enjoying the VR games. We had many reviews online, hundreds. And there were many articles in newspapers and Swedish magazines that wrote about the business. The last of the businesses in question was the Rage Room. And it was also, like the other two businesses, a privately owned business by members of the faith. The Swedish TV4 channel came out and did a news piece on the business. And there were articles in magazines written about the business. How are these frivolous businesses that are not real? We literally have tons of documented pictures and videos of customers entering into these businesses and having a great time. How are the employments sham employments? Where is the proof of these claims? Where is the evidence to support these claims? The only evidence that I see is evidence of an organized conspiracy to get the Ahmadi religion of peace and light and its members out of Sweden. Why did you not report on the taxes which the Ahmadi religion of peace and light paid? Since our official founding, the legal record of our organization has been clean. We adhere to the local laws, have never committed any crime, and we pay our taxes on time. In fact, since our registration in Sweden, we have paid around 1.7 million Swedish krona in taxes to the Swedish state. This is not including however much taxes were paid by the Rage Room, Arcadia, Virtuality, the Grandmaster, and Valhalla. Why is the religion and its employees considered to be a sham and fake, but the tax money is real and owed? Shouldn't you return the tax money that you took if it was fake? The presumption of innocence is guaranteed in the European Convention of Human Rights, Article 6, Section 2. It states, "Everyone charged with a criminal offense shall be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law." Unfortunately, the Swedish state, according to the words of Officer Lundback, does not believe in that principle, nor does it adhere to it. Rather, just as any other third world country led by a dictator, the Swedish state gets to expel and defame and slander and conspire against people without due process. The Swedish state does not believe in its own constitution either, which states that the constitution provides for the freedom, and I quote, "to practice one's religion alone or in the company of others." The Swedish state, according to the words of Officer Lundback, does not want a religious sect in their country. The truth is that they don't want anything that has to do with Islam in their country. Freedom of religion for these people is only when it is the freedom to burn the Quran. And innocent until proven guilty is only applicable if you are blonde with blue eyes. But if you are somebody who looks like us, no laws protect us, nor do we have any rights. They look at us and automatically judge us and charge us and make the most vile anti-Semitic comments against us and publish it and air it on the radio. All of this is organized propaganda allowed to take place in order to pave the way for racist and anti-immigrant sentiment and anti-Islamic laws to be placed in the country. It is the spewing of racism for the sake of rallying a Nazi base of supporters to stand behind the fascist Swedish government that's in office today. It is a plot by the devil in order to attack the da'wah of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. But it will never succeed, and upon them is the curses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is all fake news made up by racist people who hate other religions and see themselves as superior to other races. But I'm not going to allow it, and I will be fighting them back, and we will defeat you. And we will be broadcasting all over the internet and all over international television the crimes against our human rights that you have committed. And we're going to air all of the footage of all of the attacks that were made by the police day and night on our satellite channel that's going to be broadcasting to the entire Middle East and North Africa and parts of Asia and parts of Southern Europe. We will dare to call you out on the unchecked police brutality that you have displayed. You are not God, and you have no power over us. We are human beings, and we have the right to believe in whatever we want to believe in, and we have the right to assemble and to worship. So long as we did not harm you, nor break any laws, we are free, and will always remain free. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah. And Ali ibn Abi Talib and the Imams from his sons are the proofs of Allah. And Ahmed al-Hassan and the Mahdis are the proofs of Allah, whether you accept it or you deny it. Expect to hear from our lawyers very soon. Thank you.